Hey, everybody. Welcome to My Daily Bread, the podcast. I'm Ron Tolson, your host. Very excited today to have with us a member of the My Daily Bread Board of Directors and good friend of our morning call, Jacinda Williams.
Hi.
So happy you're here. And today we're just going to have fun.
Yep.
Have fun, have conversation.
Like we normally do.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jacinda and I will jump on a phone call from time to time and say, I just real quick, I want to
Yep.
and then real quick turns into
don't
very
know.
long
I don't even
conversations
know.
because we like to just hypothesize and challenge and dream and
Yes.
all of the fun stuff. So
Yes.
today, if you are watching today's program, I want you to just sit back and enjoy the conversation. We have no idea where this is going yet.
Scary.
So we'll start out with some funny stuff, just
Okay.
some funny questions and see where we go with them, right?
Sounds good.
You think you have a question coming to you that's planned, but this one is not planned.
Okay.
So I just want to see where you go with this one. How cringeworthy, Jacinda, were your early social media profiles?
My early social media profiles were pretty much non-existent, but like
Did you have MySpace?
I did have MySpace.
Okay.
And it probably, like, if I look at it now, it's probably like some sort of blurry picture. They're not as cool. There weren't selfies back then.
There weren't.
None of that. It was just this kind of maybe creeper looking, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Creepery looking thing. I don't even know. I don't remember that picture. What about yours?
I don't really remember profile pictures so much, but I was part of the early whole MySpace group, right? And then in MySpace, what was the music service that you could have and download illegal music? Do you remember that? What was that?
Illegal?
Yeah, it was illegal to download. Taylor, do
And
you
you
remember
still
that?
love Jesus?
What was it? Napster. But we didn't know it was illegal. We just thought we
Sure.
got free music. Yeah?
Yeah.
Do we need to X that out? We might. Did I just incriminate myself?
Ron, you're being normal.
I am being normal, right?
It's okay. It's okay.
Um,
That's 100 years ago.
it feels that way, doesn't it? And really, it was only what, 20?
I know, but we're old.
I know.
But I think
You
technology.
know you're old if you still have AOL at the end of your email address.
I've had my email since like middle school.
Have you?
Same one.
Same email address?
Same one. I've used it. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I've used it forever. It's a Yahoo.
Oh my goodness.
Old.
Okay. Another question. You ready for another question?
Okay.
What would you do as a street performer?
You answer first.
I asked the question.
As a street performer, maybe I would. Oh my gosh. See, I can take this two different ways, but your audience. Okay, I would do some sort of like dance, some sort of interpretive dance.
Like
just some
expressive
music.
worship?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Shout out to all the expressive worshipers on the call.
Yes, yes. I would try to emulate or imitate.
Would you have
what
flags?
No, I don't think I would have flags, but I would use my long go-go gadget arms
Mm-hmm.
in my expressive worship.
This is awesome. I'm loving this. What street
That's
performer?
not
Well,
my real
obviously, that's not your real answer.
No,
You have
but
to
we're
give your
not-
real answer.
Taylor's gonna cut all of that out.
Taylor's probably thinking like, "What's expressive worship?"
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Ron pays by the hour for editing.
Yeah.
So.
What would I do? I'd probably sing. I mean, obviously,
hello.
right? Hello.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, one of the worst experiences I've had on the street is in New York City. And I was there with the family for Thanksgiving for, it might have been Penny's 40th or Penny's 50th or my 40th. I don't remember. But we were there and it was Thanksgiving Day on the streets. And, you know, they have the street peddlers and everything. And there was these guys doing this whole money trick thing. And I thought that I could beat the system. So I'm just laying out $100 bills to try and, you know, it was the cup game, you know, like I'm going to put the money into this cup. And I mean, I kept my eyes fixed on the cup and didn't realize it was all a big trick. And I probably lost $400 that on Thanksgiving Day that year, trying to win back this big pile of money. And B kept saying to me, "Hey, bud, stop playing the game. It's fixed." And I'm like, "No, I can win. I can win." And so that was like a horrible street experience in New York City. But the truth is, I had a blast. It was still fun.
Yeah, even though you lost $400.
Even though I lost $400. Yeah. $400 I'll never get back.
It's okay.
But it was for
It was
my
New
birthday.
York.
And it was New York. You lose money anytime you go to New York anyway.
Doesn't matter. It's so expensive.
I just lost it
So
faster,
expensive.
right?
Yes.
Here's a good one. Here's a great question.
Please cut out the espresso worship one.
Yeah.
Because there are too many espresso worshipers on your call.
There
They might get offended.
They might get offended, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll cut that one
Okay.
out.
I'm
All
like,
right.
ugh,
Okay.
I'm thinking about.
So, what conspiracy theory would you like to start?
Oh my goodness. That's a good one.
That's a great question, isn't it?
I don't know. Conspiracy theory I would like to start. Ron, I'd have to think about it, but
That
that's
would-
a good one.
It's a great question. Maybe someone in our audience could answer that one. What conspiracy theory would you like to start? Not existing one. What conspiracy theory would you like to start?
Do you have
The
one?
silence.
Do you have one?
Do I have one?
You have a
Jeez.
lot of you have a lot of
I hear conspiracy theory all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So do I have one specifically in mind? No.
yeah.
Yeah. Not
That's
really.
new. Like I don't have one that's new.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Here's a good one. You have kids.
Okay.
Okay. Here's a good one. What would you lie to your kids about and why?
I just saw a meme that says, when you tell your kids we'll see, when they ask you something,
Uh-huh.
that really means that they're never going to see it. I've done that multiple times.
Yeah.
We'll see. Sure, honey, we'll see. Yeah, no.
And is that
In my
just
head, no, it's
yeah,
never going to
in your head, it's like not happening.
Not happening.
But it's more of let's make them quiet in the
Yeah,
moment.
let's just sort of appease you in the moment.
Okay. Awesome. That's pretty good. All right, go to the serious ones. Ready?
Okay.
All right. So here's a really good question. It might get our conversation started today.
Okay.
I'm not sure. So what is one thing in your heart that you know for sure?
Right now in this season, what I know for sure that God does big things on the other side of risk.
Ooh. Okay. You want to expound a little bit?
So I was risk adverse
Mm-hmm.
in my life. And I didn't realize that I was, but I just was. And I would look at other people's lives and think, why do they get to experience this? Or why are they getting these opportunities? And I would think to myself, well, maybe it's because I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not popular enough. But what I'm realizing is they risked. They took risks, and because of the risks that they took, they are seeing God meet them on the other side of their risk.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that in your life?
Quite a bit lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's actually addictive in a way.
How so?
Well, when you do take a big risk and it works out in a way that's favorable, there's something about it that opens the invitation to want to take another risk because, and I don't know scientifically speaking how it works in the brain, but there's something about it that seems to create this feeling like I did this risk. Oh, I wonder what the outcome would be if I do this risk.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden now you've got this pattern of risk taking with a result that feels good or brings an excitement that's unusual from what you're used to experiencing, that opens up the door to be like, oh, well, I had this experience and I had this experience. I wonder what will happen if I do this. This whole current chapter and last chapter of my life has been about taking a risk and owning both the fruit of it and the consequences of it, and being okay to experience whatever outcome comes. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that another word for risk is faith, right? Taking
Sure.
a leap of faith, taking a step of faith. How did you know that the step of faith or the risk that you were taking was God ordained? Because we can go out here and haphazardly just
Take a risk,
take
and
risks.
it doesn't work well.
And it doesn't work. And sometimes we take risks and we fall flat on our face. So there's a lot around this word, right? So how do you know that you're taking the right risk?
For me, I will take a risk based upon, in our Christian community, we would call it a prophecy,
Okay.
right? So I would start, I'm pretty serious about dissecting. If someone says, I have a word from the Lord for you, and they give it to you, for me, I want it to be written down, because while I like the feel good in the moment of it being stated, I want something tangible to look at that could be clues or cues for knowing when and if this word is going to come to pass.
Okay.
This is a great conversation to have, actually,
Okay.
and how I navigate through prophetic words.
Okay.
Because there's the parking lot prophets who mean well, but basically are just giving you well wishes for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And sometimes there's nothing wrong with those, because it's the word of
It's
God.
an encouragement.
Yeah, it's the word of God. I received that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what was your original question again with that?
My question is, how do you know that the risk you're taking is from the Lord?
Is from the Lord. So for me, I look towards the prophetic words that I might have received and see if there are any similarities between the opportunity for risk taking, the desire in my heart, and if it has been stated in somewhere in the past of my life through a prophetic word, through a dream. I keep a dream journal. Serious. In fact, my dream journal right now goes all the way back to 2014.
Wow.
That's when I really got serious about keeping dreams, because I realized that was the Lord speaking to me. And I have seen many of my dreams come to pass. In fact, in this season of my life, I've been going back through my dream journal to try and scale or chart where I might be on the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's to
What
say
puzzle
it that way.
piece it
Yeah,
might
what
be.
puzzle piece it might reveal.
Yeah.
So I am looking in those prophetic words for insight into the right now moments. And I believe that they show up that way.
Yes, they can. That's one way. I think also, if I may add to that, is we always use the word of God as the light test, the litmus test.
Okay.
Does this word that I might have received, whether it's from another person as a prophetic word, whether you feel it in your heart and you feel like the Lord is speaking to you that way, whether it's a dream, there's many ways that the Lord can speak to us. And regardless, but it has to filter through us, right? And so we have to know his voice. We have, the Bible says the sheep know the shepherd's voice, right? That's my
Yes.
paraphrase. And so making sure it passes the light test or the litmus test. Like, God, does this in any way go against your word and what you say about your word and say who you are and what you have for me as a Christian? Another way, I think, is having wise counsel.
That's a good one. Go there.
We all have, I have a board of my board of directors for my personal life that I am super transparent with, that know the junk, right? That I'm able to say, hey, and who are wise and want the best for me. And I can say, this is what I'm feeling like God's speaking to me, or this is a word I got, or this is the Rhema word I got in the Bible when I was reading it. And I just really feel like the Lord is leading me to do something, to take a step. For example, I was working at a job, and I was in the job and I enjoyed the job, but I couldn't advance any further. And I remember feeling like, God, they're not seeing me. They're not seeing my value. I feel like I'm bringing a lot to the table, but I don't think that the leadership is seeing me here. Now, I'm not saying go jump ship. So I'm literally just thinking about it, praying about it. And I'm just thinking to myself, I think you're wanting me to take a step and leave. I think you're wanting me to move forward. I don't know. So, I'm digging into his word, principles about taking risks, principles about stewardship, anything I can get my hands on. I'm talking to friends about it. My board of directors, wise counsel, like pray with me about this. If you hear anything from God about it, tell me, and then on the other side, I think, I'm saving my money on the side in case if this is what God's telling me to do. I'm going to start stashing cash away. And I didn't hear, Jacinda, leave your job at this date. Like I didn't hear
Noah, build an ark.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't hear that, but I had enough of a relationship and a sense, you know what? I think this is the right thing. I'm going to take a risk. I had saved my cash. I knew I could live about 3 months without having a job.
I do know.
You do know, and so what I guess my point is, it's not always super clear.
For sure.
Right? And I think part of that is God saying, reach for me, take a step. I'm here. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I took the rest and I left the job, even though I was so grateful for it, God had something so much better for me, better suited for me, allowing me to use my gifts where I was valued. I made more money, all the things. But that it took some time, right, for me to vet what's happening, that I feel like God's saying to me on the inside, to vet that by his word, by wise counsel, by just listening and waiting, and not just, I'm feeling emotional today. Because it wasn't easy, because during a certain transition period, I'm not necessarily feeling like I want to go to work every day. Let's be real. So if I'm having an emotional moment, I'm like, I'm out. These people are whack. I'm done. Right? But like, it wasn't the right time. So I still had to wait, even though I felt like I knew God told me to leave.
Who decided that for you?
Who decided what?
Who decided timing for you?
I decided timing.
You decided timing.
I decided timing. But I wanted to make sure that my timing, that I didn't make a choice based on just an emotion or unfairness or anything external or fear. That I did it out of a place of alignment, what I felt like what the Lord was telling me to do.
That's really good. So from the time that you left there to the time that you attained the new thing, what was the space of time?
3 months.
3 months. Mm-hmm. And how long?
4 months.
4 months. So you had saved for 3 months.
Yep.
It became 4 months.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, Lord.
At what point did you hit panic mode?
Oh, I hit panic mode probably as quick as I quit the job. Like, okay, God, but doing my due diligence, right? Stewarding what I knew how to do in the moment, looking for other jobs. Nothing was coming. Nobody asking people to help me with my resume, going to people who I knew were good at, things that I wasn't good at, as far as like job finding. And the funniest thing is, at the 4th month, when I started panicking, I got a call at 7 a.m. in the morning from a number I didn't know, and I was irritated because I was getting the kids ready for school, and some guy is asking me about this part-time temp job opportunity, and I was like, I'm too good for a temp job opportunity. But because I hadn't had any opportunities, I was like, okay, I'll just do it to practice interviewing. And I went and I interviewed with him, and I thought, I do not want this job. He's not explaining it well. It was horrible. But I just went through the process, right? And then I ended up interviewing with a person at this reputable company and loved her. But I still struggled with, God, I prayed for this XYZ. It's supposed to look like this, but it doesn't look like this. This is a temp. Like, this is not what this is supposed to look like. So I went to an awesome friend, and I talked to her about it, and she did recruiting for big companies, and she started sort of framing, this is an amazing opportunity for you, Jacinda. So all of a sudden, this poo-pooing, this temp job actually was the catalyst and the stepping stone for my income and for the next opportunity that came almost 8 months later, where I made even more money and I had even more opportunity because I took a job at a bigger company and they saw that on my resume. It was a reputable company, so it was easier for me to get in. So sometimes when we take a risk, we think it's supposed to show up perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
God's supposed to answer it perfectly. That's just from A to Z. And sometimes that happens, but sometimes we have to trust the process. And thank God for my friend who said, it may not look exactly the way that you think it's supposed to right now, but I believe this is going to help you to your next step. And that's exactly what happened. And now I'm in such an amazing place doing what I love and learning at the same time. So I just think that we have to sort of, it was that first step, right? That first step of taking a risk. And risks can be big or small. But I believe that when we take them, God meets us on the other side.
What did you learn about yourself when you chose to engage with risk?
That I have the capacity to do it and that I'm my own limitation.
Okay.
I don't know, I struggle sometimes with feeling like enough or the work that I produce is enough or good enough, that I would rather not do it at all and do it secretly in my room or at my desk and then throw it away, tuck it in a drawer, and then start all over. Because I love the process. I love creating. I just don't know if it's good enough. So I'll just... But then that just keeps me in the land of potential, and then I don't get to really realize my dream when opportunity comes.
Wow. That's really good. What did you learn about God in that moment you took the risk to leave the familiar, comfortable job and wait for what was more in line with what you were wanting to be doing?
I think by that point, because I had been taking little risks along the way.
Okay.
I had actually, so when I got divorced and I was rediscovering who I was and trying to figure out who's Jacinda, what does she want to do? I had no idea at that point. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't know. So I felt like I was supposed to create what I call a risk list. And every month I put something on there to do. That was within my budget. I didn't have tons of cash back then. And so I remember thinking, I'm going to do fake eyelashes and see if I like that. Because what was happening, what I recognized about myself was I did things based on other people's responses, not based on if I really liked it or enjoyed it or not. And so I thought, because we have a spirit and we have a soul.
Okay.
And I think the church does a really great job of teaching us how to feed our spirit, to grow our spirit, and to make sure we're in alignment and in communication with the Lord. But I think sometimes we don't balance that out with feeding our soul. And that's our mind, will, and emotion. That it's not any less spiritual to nurture that part of us as well. And so during that time of healing, I had to learn what fed my soul. What did I like? What brought me joy? And so it would be like, maybe I run a little marathon. Maybe I put eyelashes on, maybe. So I was doing little things once a month, what I called my risk list. So slowly I had been like sort of building that sort of stamina to take a risk. So by the time it was for me to take the risk, I just strengthened the muscle. And so by the time that time came, I was like, God, I saw that you met me in these little ways. Like, I'm going to give even though I don't have a lot to give right now. I'm going to live by those stewardship principles around my money. God, I'm going to not take vacations even though I'm jealous because everybody in the world is taking vacations, but I don't have the cash because you told me you wanted me to buy a home for me and the kids. And I have a part to play in that. I have to steward. And so, you know what I mean? So it's just taking risks in those little ways to the point where it just, like you said, building that muscle so that I'm able to. Is that clear? Am I being
Pretty clear to me.
okay? Is that clear, Taylor? Okay, sorry.
Wow. So, how do you, as someone who has worked on building the muscle of taking risk, at what point or can you exhaust that? I think there's a better question there.
I think you can have momentum, and then one time when it doesn't work, or there's a failure, or you fall flat on your face or whatever, that can bring up disappointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a big thing for me is if there's a failure, which we can always learn from our failures or disappointments, it doesn't change who I am and what I can bring to the party. It just means it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So then I need to tweak, change, pivot, whatever I was doing to try to make it work. So it's no longer, it used to be for me, I would fail or something. Oh, God just doesn't want me to have it. I'm just not good enough. It just it's not supposed to be. I'm going to stop, which would have been my old reaction to, okay, so how can I pivot? Maybe this isn't the right direction. Maybe I just need to make a few tweaks, or maybe I need to let that go. But then that gives me information to know what direction to go into. And it doesn't change what God's put inside of me. It may change how and my method to get there.
Okay. So there's been a statement that you have made for as long as I've known you.
Okay.
And it's one of my favorite statements. When I think of you, when I talk to you, I'm thinking this statement usually. And your statement says, I'm just a practical girl living in a practical world. How did that self-mantra challenge your willingness to be risky?
Stewardship. Because being practical to me is being a steward.
Okay.
So even if I'm risking, you best believe I'm stewarding and being practical in the moment with whatever. If it's buying a house, I'm being practical by saving, I'm budgeting, I'm doing all those things so I can live in the and for that. I can be practical and risk at the same time.
Okay. That's
So
a great
see
answer,
what I mean?
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you advise if you were coaching somebody, because you are a coach, if you were coaching another single mom who's gone through a divorce situation, how would you coach her to be able to trust that invitation to risk, but yet be practical with the experience of her life?
So I think it starts back to knowing our God. And a pastor would always say, understanding the theology that God is a good God. If I don't understand that and believe it with every fiber in my being, none of this works. I cannot steward every day if I do not believe that God is a good God. And I'm so grateful that he would preach that every Sunday because it got inside of me and I grabbed it and I didn't let go. Still haven't. So when I'm going through a process and it's hard and it's long, because that's what makes it hard. The Bible says when hope deferred makes a heart grow sick.
Yes.
So when you're in a season that feels like, God, I've done everything. I mean, I remember I was working 2 jobs forever. Like if you knew, like forever, like 5 years. And I remember thinking, all I want is one job. Can I just have one? You know what I mean? Now I was grateful for the 2 because it helped me have flexibility and be a mom and take the kids to school and all of that. But there was work involved, right? And so after 5 years, you could be like, well, maybe just maybe wasn't what God has for me, you know? But my faith was, you are a good God. You have a plan that I cannot see. I'm going to steward and be practical today, what I know to do. Not perfectly, I'm going to mess up, but along the way, as I read your word, I hang out and spend time with you, the Holy Spirit begins to give you specific things for your family, for your budget. It's not all cookie cutter. We have principles.
Right.
We have
Totally
principles
not cookie cutter,
in God's word. But God gives us the responsibility with the way that we connect with him and our relationship with him of how to build the culture in our home and in our hearts, right? Like that's personal. So he would give me direction and things to do in the midst, right? Being practical. Jacinda, you're spending too much money over here. You need to cut out XYZ. Jacinda, spend a little bit more over here. Okay, God, if I do that, how do I do this? You know what I mean? Just that practical every day. And then stewarding what I know to do. Because it is not about what you have. I'm thoroughly convinced. It's not about what you have in your hand. It is about what you do with what you have in your hand, and the Lord will multiply it. Like he will literally multiply it. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about friendships. And he will multiply what you steward based on the principles in his word.
That's really good. Have you experienced, what has your experience been with, better question, is there a risk that you have not taken because the price was too great?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was that like?
So I'm in it right now, if I'm being really honest.
Sure.
The risk that I have not taken, I felt like the Lord wanted me to step out to help women who've gone through grief.
Sure.
That comes from divorce, widow, loss, anything. And I've had this in my heart forever. When I talked about creating things and tucking it in a drawer, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And literally, people have said, you've got it in you. God's going to use you. I mean, I've had such encouragement. I've had encouraging words, but I that's risky, right? It's risky because what if my content's not good enough? There's a whole bunch of other people doing the same thing. How can I add to this conversation? But I literally was in a car, a friend of mine and I were shopping for furniture. And I was in the car and I was working. I had my work computer out. Just got off a phone call. I hung up the phone call and the Lord literally, his presence, like he just came into the car. And you know how sometimes you feel God's presence and you're just like, oh, I love you, God. Thank you for being here. And you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not real, right? Like
it is that real. Yes.
But it was so weighty that I knew I had to stop. And the Lord grabbed my heart and was like, you're buying furniture, not just for you, Jacinda. You're buying it for the people you're supposed to serve. And I just began to cry and I just began to type with my thumbs, began to take notes on my phone of what I heard him say. So I was like, okay. I don't feel ready. My feelings haven't changed. I still feel, but I am stewarding by starting to create content, retraining myself, remembering, going on Facebook groups, remembering what that season of my life was like, hired a business coach. I'm stewarding and being practical with the things I know to do, trusting that God will open the doors as I take steps and risk.
Is there ever a time where risk is not appropriate?
When it's the wrong timing.
Okay. Just the wrong timing?
I don't know. That's what comes to my mind immediately. Mm-hmm. But sometimes God can tell us something and it's just not the right time. So I have so many stories. I have so many examples of this, but God is still in it. It just wasn't the right time. So but knowing him enough to know whether I need to beat down the door or whether I need to let the door open.
Okay. And how do you discern that?
Do all that you know to do. And if the door is not opening, you wait. And we're led by peace. We're led by peace.
We are led by peace. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Man.
Is there a time? Did you think of something? Is there a time?
Is there a time?
when risk is not appropriate?
I haven't thought of a time yet. I haven't experienced the time yet, especially over this last year when I realized how fleeting time is. It just was a constant reminder to me, like, no one's promised tomorrow.
But if we risk with our own intentions, if God's not in it, or we're trying to be manipulative, God is not working fast enough, so we're going to try to manipulate a situation to get the outcome.
Right.
Like those sorts of things.
Those, yeah.
Right? But if we're in alignment and we're hearing the Lord and we're waiting on him, because I think sometimes we wait too long. I just gave you an example.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, I would have been there if you just taken a step.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, he's so gracious. Right?
Very
he's
gracious.
so gracious.
Yes.
To be like, okay, girl, let me get your heart. This is me. Yeah. You know it's me, but let me remind you that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I would hate that. What I don't want for me and for anybody is to live in the land of potential and not realize what God has inside of them. Mm-hmm. Because God is the great creator. He has created us to create, to take what we've been given and do something to expand his kingdom. Mm-hmm. And nothing is too little and nothing is too big, because it's like the little things that people have done or given me that might seem like, that's like nothing for me. That's huge to me because I could have never created that. And it came at such a beautiful time because my heart might have needed it, or it brought me such joy, or brought my kids joy. Like, not dismissing the things that he's put in our hearts because we might think it's small or insignificant, but just to continue to give and create. And regardless of how the Lord amplifies that, he may amplify it huge and the whole world knows about it. Or he might not, and it's just your sphere of influence that know about it. Regardless, you're walking into who he's made you to be, and you're changing your world because you're stewarding what he's put in your hands to do.
That's really good. So what then do you use? What's your guide for knowing if you should or have an opportunity to take a risk? Let's say that you have something in front of you. How do you gauge whether or not you're going to risk it?
I think you kind of already alluded to this before when you said, is it something that it's like something that I want to do? Is this something that my gifting would lend itself to? Like, for instance, I took a risk to do sales because I was good at buying, but I thought, let me take a risk and do sales. Buying meaning media buying. And I thought, okay, this would be fun, more, and I did it. And I was like, I just risked myself out of my sweet spot. This ain't it.
You're like,
this
is
not
I
it.
don't enjoy that.
Right. But how would I have known unless I've taken the risk? You see what I mean? So yeah, it was I learned a lot. I enjoyed it, but I just wasn't great at it, So, I think it's okay. You know what I mean? I just sort of had to it just redirected me on where to go and what to do.
What's the most important thing that a believer needs to know about taking risks?
God's in it. If God's in it, just do it. Because it's faith. You're putting your faith in action when you take a step.
Okay.
Right? Like you're saying, God's saying, I see this for you, or I want to heal you. I mean, the Bible even talks about that. And, I can't remember the person's name in the Bible, but he said, countless, let me spit in your eye, go dip into the water.
We have a great story around this whole thing. Yes, we do.
But like, regardless of what was in front of them, those that took the risk found the healing. Those that took the risk saw God move on their behalf.
Reap the reward.
Yeah, they did. And sometimes I think it can get hard because the noise, if we don't see that immediate response, the noise of the enemy, the noise of our own brains, the noise of outside influence can say, well, did you really hear from God? Girl, please. You know what I mean? It's been
I do know
this
what you mean.
many years. Come on.
I hear that a lot.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like, we have been given the directive to cast down thoughts. I mean, we should be thought ninjas. You know what I mean? Like, we should literally, like, that's part of the stewardship on the way of acting out and stepping out in faith and taking risks. What if people don't like your risk? What happens when people don't like when you
talk
step
about
out?
this. We're going to lean into this for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. What do we do?
No, I'm asking you.
You're asking me.
Okay.
Doggone
so
it. You're going
what
to make
do
me
we
answer
do?
too.
Because there's a thing of growing, right? As we risk, our muscles grow, right? That risk muscle grows. And we have this dream in our heart. And we're like, you know what? We're going to step out in faith. We're going to believe God. We're going to cast down thoughts that don't go along with what God's told us to do, that try to discourage us. We are going to steward what we know. We're going to do all the things. Then we start walking in the risk. We're starting making moves.
Towards the risk.
We're making moves. And then you have the peanut gallery of your life
Yep.
that has an opinion on the risks and the movement that you're taking. Because when you heal or when you grow, not everybody loves the transformation that happens inside of us. So how do you, Ron Tolson, handle when people and the noise that comes and the opinions that come when you step out?
I have the answer that God himself gave me.
Okay.
Because I have been walking in the reality of this.
Okay.
In this chapter of my life. And the answer came with the very first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me.
That's good.
And I struggled with that answer because I thought, okay, God, that's easy. You know, I don't have any other gods. I'm not bowing in worship to any other God. I serve I don't pay tithe or give offerings to any other God.
Yep.
I don't have any other gods before me. And he called me on the carpet and he said to me, then why does that person's voice matter to you more than my voice?
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, geez, you're going to make me answer this, aren't you? And I started assessing about all of the voices that I was hearing and realized that I was placing more value on a person's voice than the leading of God's voice. And realized that I do, in fact, have a God before our God Jehovah. So when I caught that response, it was because it was automatic. It was just something inside of me. I don't know if it was conditioning from the time of growing up in Christianity, in the church world, where I was taught to be obedient no matter what, listen to your elders, all of the stuff that we grew up in church. And those of you watching and listening to this podcast and have grown up in church for any length of time, you can witness to it in your own life where there has been this unspoken expectation that you don't ask questions, you listen to what you're told, that whoever's in charge over you, their voice matters more than anything. Well, what do you do with the fact that God speaks to you also? What do you do with you growing into hearing the voice of the Lord for your life, and that voice says something different than your pastor says? Yeah. Or that voice says something different than that church mama that has helped guide your path for many years? Or what do you do with those voices? Well, at one point, you have to grow up. At one point, church mama becomes a sweet woman of God in your life. But the moment her voice takes precedence over the voice of God that speaks to you now as a grown, mature, spiritual man or woman of God, then you find yourself in trouble with the Lord. So I had to become okay with the fact that not everyone was going to clap hands for me to follow God's voice for my life. And it became very clear to me in this last chapter.
How do you keep your hope when risk doesn't yield the right outcome?
How do you keep your hope when risk does not yield the right outcome? I think going into risk, you have to be willing to be wrong. And I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves, is to take perfection off the plate.
That's good.
Take the expectation that this is going to go exactly the way I have imagined it going.
Writing the story.
Writing
and letting
the story.
God write the story.
Right.
So us having, sorry
That's
to
okay.
interrupt you, but I was walking, the boys were at church last night, and I was walking, trying to get my steps in. And the Lord said to me about something. He's like, have the faith, take the risk, but give me the pen.
Ooh. Have the faith, take the risk,
but give me the pen.
That's
Let
beautiful.
me write the story, because it's going to be more beautiful than what your brain is even trying to come up with right now.
And in that, there comes your word that you have said to me over and over, surrender.
Yep.
When we surrender the outcome, the risk becomes more exciting, actually.
Because God can do so much more.
It's like me asking you these questions at the beginning of our call. You didn't know what I was about to ask you.
Yep.
And you just had to be ready
Yep.
that the answer could be something great, or it could be something like, will you delete that? Right?
Edit.
Yeah. Edit. Where's the edit button? And I believe that is something that we have to keep on the radar when it comes to being a risk taker. That it's the possibility that not only is it possible that it's going to work out incredibly, it's possible that I might fail. In fact, someone recently said that to me. What if this doesn't work out? And I said, so what? I'll go figure out the next thing. Pastor Lee was amazing. He was a risk taker unlike any other risk taker I've ever known.
I love it.
He was not afraid to take a risk. And he would even confess that from time to time. I'm not afraid to take a risk. And so I've started making that my confession. I'm not afraid to fail. What happens if I fail? Well, then I just go figure out another way to do it. And you think of Thomas Edison, even when he invented the light bulb, he had 10,000 reasons why the way he was doing it wouldn't work. And all of a sudden, at 10,001, guess what he invented? The light bulb. But,
and that doesn't mean you're going to be void of feeling and disappointment.
Yeah.
We're just so faith-filled that we feel nothing. And God, no. But God can heal our pain.
Mm-hmm.
He can turn our disappointment around.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, he gives us the grace and the strength to walk through those tough moments.
Yeah.
We're not going to be left dead emotionally and can't get back up again. Why? Because we're walking with the Lord. He will fill us with the strength, the joy, the peace, the grace, all the things to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
When we feel quote unquote failure, because really what failure is we're just learning a new way.
Sure. Here's the balance of that. I may be wrong, but I may be right.
Yep.
I may mess this up, but I may make this the most successful thing that I've ever experienced in life. And so having both possibilities on the table will keep us energized when the moments are low.
Yes.
When the funds are low.
Yes.
When you have no idea where provision is going to come from.
Yep.
You keep that idea in your heart that, you know what, this may be the greatest thing that God has ever called me to do. And as long as that's on the table, as long as possibility, it may be the dreamer inside of me, I don't know. But as long as the possibility of success is on the table, I'm in. And I'm all in.
And you're all in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're all in, sometimes that can feel overwhelming, right?
Yes.
Like, I've got to make the dream what
Mm-hmm.
he's told me. I know that I know. But it's not even like that. It's just taking a step. It is taking a step.
Yep.
And each step that we take, God's pinning the story.
Yeah. So that leads into, before we close, a coach friend of mine. She came and spoke at the church one time. And I remember from her message when she said that her father taught her, what is your next best move? When it comes to risk, if you are looking at taking a risk in your life, if you are looking at changing your career, if you are looking at moving into that relationship, if you are looking at making any kind of notable or unbelievable change in your life, how do you know what the next step is? What is the next best move? The next one. Because you only have to worry about that one.
Yep.
We get overwhelmed with thinking that we have to come up with the end game first.
Yep.
No.
It's true.
We just have to take the next best move. And when we take the next best move, it's in that space that we will realize what the next best move is. Your word is a lamp unto my feet.
That's so good.
And a light unto my path. And so we don't get to choose how bright that light is in the moment. But every now and then that light will shine brightly and we'll see a few moves at a time.
And our confidence in the Lord will
grow.
build and build and build, so that the risk that you took in the beginning will seem so small because the risk that you took toward the end was huge because you built that muscle.
Absolutely. Maybe you are someplace in your life where you need to make some changes. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen. And maybe you're in a place where you have an opportunity to take a risk. And I want to encourage you that no matter what that is, seek the Lord. Ask him if this is the right move for you, if it's the right plan for your life. And I love what Scripture tells us, that if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of the Lord, and the Lord who gives wisdom will give it to him liberally. You can trust that if you ask the Lord for anything, he's going to give it to you, especially when it comes to wisdom and understanding. So take the risk, but ask God first. Yeah? We good?
You're good at closings, Tolson. You're good at closings.